My name is Mary Thompson. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 8 years, I have been living in someone else's version of my life. I used to be happy. I used to laugh without thinking twice, wear what I wanted without second guessing, speak without fear of saying the wrong thing. Then I met Michael. He was everything I thought I wanted, charming, thoughtful, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the center of his world. And I believed him when he said, "I'll always take care of you." But love shouldn't feel like a trap. It started so slowly, I almost didn't notice. A little correction here, a small disapproving look there. "Don't wear that, it doesn't suit you." "Why do you always overthink things?" "I just want what's best for you." At first I thought he was being protective, maybe even loving. But with every small change, every little compromise, I lost pieces of myself. One day I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back at me, and that's when I knew I wasn't living my life anymore. I was living his. Looking back, I wonder when it really started. Was it the first time he corrected me in public? The way his hand squeezed mine just a little too tight under the dinner table, his voice smooth but firm. "That's not what happened, Mary." Or was it when he started making decisions for me? "You don't need to work. I make enough for both of us." "I don't think she's a good friend for you." "I know you better than you know yourself." At first I thought he was right. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe he really did know what was best. But then the apologies started, not from him, never from him, from me. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. I didn't realize I was being difficult. I'll be better next time." Next time. There was always a next time. He had a way of making me feel like I was always one step away from disappointing him. A sigh, a look of disapproval, a casual, "I guess I'll just have to deal with it." I started changing in ways I never noticed. I stopped wearing my favorite colors because he didn't like them. I stopped laughing too loudly because it embarrassed him. I stopped reaching out to friends because it made him uncomfortable. And slowly, I stopped being me. But it wasn't just about what I stopped doing. It was about how I started feeling. I started second-guessing every text I sent, every word I spoke, every decision I made. I started checking his mood before I spoke, measuring my words carefully to avoid an argument. I started blaming myself for the way he treated me, because he never yelled, he never hit me. So I convinced myself it wasn't abuse. But control doesn't always come with bruises. Sometimes it comes with quiet corrections, with love wrapped in chains, with a smile that makes you feel small instead of safe. And by the time I realized it, I was already lost. One day, I sat in the quiet of my own home and realized I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I don't remember the exact moment I broke. Maybe it was the night I spent 3 hours cooking his favorite meal, only for him to take one bite and push the plate away. Too salty, no thank you, no appreciation, just disappointment. Or maybe it was the time I asked if we could spend time together, just the two of us, and he sighed, rubbing his temples like I was exhausting him. "You always need something from me, Mary." I started to feel like a burden in my own marriage. But the real breaking point came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry, mindlessly going through the motions when I picked up one of his shirts, and I froze, because I realized I didn't remember the last time I had bought something for myself. Every extra dollar went to him, his work clothes, his hobbies, his needs. And I was standing there, in an old sweater I had owned for years, holding a perfectly pressed button-up that I had ironed for him, while I couldn't remember the last time I did something just for me. I dropped the shirt. I sat down on the bed, staring at the walls of a house that never really felt like mine, and for the first time I let myself ask the question I had been avoiding for years. What if I left? The thought was terrifying. Michael made sure I had nothing of my own, no job, no savings, no close friendships left. He had built a world where I needed him, or at least that's what he wanted me to believe. But as I sat there, staring at the empty space beside me, another thought crept in. What if I stayed? What if this was it? What if I spent the rest of my life like this, walking on eggshells, apologizing for things I hadn't done, shrinking myself just to keep the peace? And for the first time in years, I realized something. I didn't want to live like this. I couldn't. That was the moment I decided. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I was going to leave. Once the decision was made, I thought I would feel relief, but instead I felt fear. Leaving Michael wasn't as simple as walking out the door. He had spent years making sure I had nothing without him, no job, no savings, no real friends left. But I had something he didn't expect, a plan. At first I moved carefully, quietly. I started saving what little money I could. A few dollars here, some change there. I tucked it away in the pocket of an old coat I never wore. I reached out to an old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years because Michael didn't like her. She answered on the first ring. "Mary, oh my God, is that you?" Her voice cracked, like she had been waiting for this call, like she had never forgotten me, even when I had disappeared from her life. I told her everything. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't ask why I stayed so long. She just said, "What do you need?" And for the first time in years, I felt like I had an answer. Help me get out. From that moment, every little action became a step toward freedom. I started leaving small things behind. At her place, a bag of clothes, a book, anything that wouldn't raise suspicion. I used the grocery budget to buy gift cards instead of food, hiding them in places he'd never look. I searched for jobs when he wasn't home, writing down phone numbers, memorizing addresses. And through it all, I smiled. I played my role, the obedient wife, the woman who still hung on his every word. Because if Michael sensed even the smallest change, I knew what would happen. He would pull me back in. He would remind me why I needed him. He would make me doubt myself all over again. And I couldn't let that happen. I was so close. I just had to hold on a little longer. I thought I was careful. I thought I was quiet, invisible. But Michael was always watching. It started with little things. "You've been on your phone a lot lately. Where were you after work? You seem different." His tone wasn't angry, not yet, but I could feel it, like a storm waiting to break. I forced a laugh, shaking my head. "Just tired, that's all." He stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Tired of what, Mary?" That's how he worked. Questions designed to trap me. Words meant to pull me back into the cage I was trying to escape. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "Nothing, Michael. I'm fine." But I wasn't fine, and he knew it. The next day, my hidden money was gone. Every dollar I had saved, every gift card, vanished. My heart stopped. I checked my coat pocket, my drawer, under the bed. Every place I had hidden a piece of my escape. Empty. Panic rose in my throat, but I didn't have time to feel it, because Michael was standing in the doorway, watching me. "Looking for something?" My stomach dropped. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't yelling. His voice was calm, cold, like he had already won. "You know, Mary, I do everything for you." He took a step closer. I didn't move. "I protect you, I take care of you, and this is how you repay me?" Gaslighting, manipulation, the same cycle over and over again. But this time something inside me shifted. I wasn't scared. I was angry, because I knew the truth now. He wasn't protecting me. He was controlling me. He didn't love me. He owned me. At least he thought he did. I took a slow breath, forcing my hands to stop shaking. "I need to get some air." He narrowed his eyes. "No, you don't." That was it, the final crack in the illusion. He didn't even pretend anymore. He didn't want me happy. He wanted me trapped. But I wasn't trapped. Not anymore. I met his gaze one last time before turning away. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't waiting any longer. I was leaving. Tonight. I didn't sleep that night. Every breath, every movement felt like it could give me away. Michael went to bed as usual, but I knew he didn't trust me anymore. He was testing me, waiting for me to slip up. Oh, I had to be smart. At 3 a.m., I slipped out of bed, heart pounding so loudly I thought it would wake him. Step by step, I moved through the house, careful not to make a sound. My bag was already hidden by the door, just the essentials. I didn't need much, I just needed to go. But as I reached for the handle, his voice cut through the silence. Going somewhere? I froze. He was standing at the top of the stairs watching me. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I exhaled. Yes. His expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker of something in his eyes. Panic. Because for the first time, I wasn't backing down. Mary, be reasonable. His voice was soft now, coaxing. Where will you go? You have nothing without me. He still thought I was the same woman who believed him, but I wasn't. I don't need you, Michael. I saw it then, the moment he realized he had lost control, the moment he knew I wasn't afraid anymore. His jaw clenched, his hands curling into fists, but I didn't wait for his response. I opened the door and stepped outside. The air was cold, sharp, but for the first time in years, I could breathe. A car pulled up down the street, my friend, waiting. I walked toward it without looking back. Because Michael wasn't my story anymore, I was finally writing my own.